listening to the Astrocast.
Welcome back to the Astrocast. I'm your host, Drew. Today is Wednesday, February 18th, 2026. The new moon is here and starting to fill up. Hope everybody's been well. We had one good clear night and then the clouds rolled in, so that's why I'm a little confused on new moon, because I'm not sure if I saw it or not. Well, didn't see it or not, I guess would be more accurate. God, it's been a minute. I feel like we haven't had a solo chat in a little bit. Hope everybody's been doing good. I've certainly been very busy, as I'm sure you know, what with all the interviews we've been doing as of late. I just want to send a big thank you to both Mean and Nathan for coming on the show. They were both excellent guests and provided some very unique insights into their specific projects and parts of the astronomy community that they deal with. Mean in particular, man, oh man, what a smart guy. And I wish him all the success in the world, because I'm a firm believer that competition builds innovation. And I mean, the same thing can be said for Nathan. You know, he is going into a market that is extremely competitive right now. And, you know, remote observatories are starting to pop up in different places, but I am definitely going to be putting my chips on the table for Astropeak. So I wish him all of the success in the world as well. So to that point, I have been working on testing out my remote rig. So I know I talked to you guys about this a few weeks ago, and I finally got to the point where I was able to kind of put it all together, so to speak, and start testing. Now I say start testing because, man, oh man, there's a lot of stuff that I am going to want and need to test before I pack everything up and send it out to Utah. So I thought it might be fun if we talk about some of the easier things that I've had to deal with, and then some of the tougher stuff that I have had to deal with so far, and still dealing with to some extent. So I've only gotten to test an actual couple of nights. And I suppose before I could even get to that point, I really needed to set the telescope up in such a way that I could easily access it quickly every night that I had clear skies. Longtime listeners of the show will know that I installed a pier in my yard over last summer. So in my side yard where I set up on the regular, I've got a little fenced in area. The fenced in area helps a lot with wind, by the way, I might add. So we've got a brick home, and on the eastern side of the home is where my pier is. And I've got, you know, just a regular 6-foot fence that surrounds my entire yard, so I can let the dogs out and they can run and play. And then we have a little separate kind of area on the side yard where my mother's apartment is, that's built onto our home. And it's sectioned off, and I have that kind of little area right there for my observatory. So prior to last week, I had this set up to where I could basically run the CEM26 Ioptron mount, which is a great mount, and I still use it on a regular basis. When I initially set the pier up, I was actually using the Star Adventure GTI. So I had basically a pier tube that the GTI would sit on that I could connect to the plate using a 3/8 screw or bolt rather. And when I eventually said, okay, I need to be able to support a little bit more weight, I was able to put the CEM26 on the pier. Now, the issue that I ran into was I'm not going to send the CEM26 out to Astropeak because I'm not going to say it's a finicky mount, but it's not the kind of mount that I would like to have in a remote setup. I think, a harmonic drive mount is definitely what you want to do if you have a choice in sending something out, just because it's, very reliable. It's easy to work with. There's less things to go wrong in my experience. So the AM3 was an easy decision for me to make for which one is going to go out to Astropeak. So I needed to take the CEM26 down, which is super easy. It's just a couple of screws, the azimuth bolts, and then a 3/8 bolt that goes underneath. Remove that, and then basically put the AM3 in its place. Now, the issue is the AM3 and AM5 for that matter, and AM7 for that matter, have a completely different pier plate than what my CEM26 would use for setting on the pier. So you have to have some type of way to connect your mount to the pier itself. And most people that I've seen will use like steel plates of some sort, and then they'll have 4 bolts coming out of the concrete. That's exactly what I did. I actually have 2 steel plates. And the reason I used 2 is so I could put things in between the first and second plate, like power supplies, for example. And it's highly adjustable, which is great. So like, even if your pier is very slightly not level, with those plates on there, you can just adjust the bolts to where you get it perfectly level. So I knew that I would have to make a new plate for my AM3. Now I do have the pier extension that you can put onto your carbon fiber TC30 tripod to avoid hitting the tripod whenever you're, at the meridian or near it. And I knew that I would definitely want to use that just because it would give me more clearance. And it's really easy to take the AM3 on and off that pier extension. It's got the same type of connection that you would have if you were to just put it directly onto the TC30 tripod as well. So if you remember, a couple months back, I actually purchased a drill press, and I haven't had too many opportunities to use it yet. But I was feeling a little bit froggy last weekend, and I knew I needed to, start testing out this rig for remote purposes. So I figured it was the perfect time to spin up the drill press. I actually purchased this drill press from Harbor Freight for a very low cost. It was only, I want to say it was like $130 out the door. It was very inexpensive. So I had, obviously some worries about whether or not it would be able to do what I needed it to do, which is, drill through, 1/4 inch, 1/2 inch steel plates, that sort of thing. Because the main reason that I was purchasing it is so I can make different pier plate adapters for when I want to put, different mounts on my pier. So to that end, what I did was I grabbed a piece of cardboard just to use as a stencil, and I placed the pier tube on top of the cardboard. I then I needed to use something really thin. You can't get like a Sharpie through. If you could have, then I probably would have just set it right on the metal plate and used a Sharpie to mark the spots that I needed to go. But since I couldn't get a Sharpie through those little holes, like the, M5 sized holes that are on the pier extension, I decided to put it on cardboard, and then I used a really thin piece of metal to basically poke holes through the cardboard so I could see exactly where they needed to go. I then proceeded to put that cardboard over the metal plate and then scratch in a mark on each spot where a hole needed to go. Actually, no, I take that back. I didn't scratch in a spot. Once I had marked those holes, I then just measured. I was like, duh, why don't I just measure this and mark it? And it ended up being like at the 0, 2 inch and 4 inch spots where I needed to drill my holes. So I put the metal plate on the drill press, and I haven't built, there's a special word that they use. I think it's called like a table for the drill press that lets you basically work a little bit easier within it and safer. I don't have one of those yet. So I used clamps. I clamped down the metal plate just to make sure that it couldn't spring back if it got caught on the bit. And I've also got it at a very low speed. In fact, it's the lowest speed that the drill press can go. And the reason you want to do that is when you're working with really hard materials like metal to drill through, you want to do it at a slower speed. So I undid the chuck. I put in the appropriate sized bit, and I think I used a 3/8 bit on the middle because, that's the bigger 3/8 hole. And then I used like a much smaller bit on the two little side bolts that I ended up using to attach. And I very, very easily got through those metal plates. I mean, it took no time at all. So I can definitely recommend that drill press from Harbor Freight. It's their most inexpensive one. And like I say, I think it was around $100 that I paid out the door for it. So you really can't beat that if you're in a position like me and you need to be able to make, multiple pier plates and you don't want to rent the tool or what have you. I will say, if you're a member of your local astronomy club, maybe check with them first, because I found out after I'd purchased mine that we do have one down at the club. So I probably could have used that one had I asked, but I'm glad to have one at home. I'm a tool guy. I love having, every tool under the sun. So anyway, I got the 3 holes drilled. I then went to Ace Hardware, which again has an excellent selection of pretty much every type of screw that you could need for astronomy. And they come in all sorts of different metals. They have, galvanized, regular stainless. They've even got chrome plated screws if you're so inclined. So I made a trip up there and I got, I think it was 3 2-inch bolts of different sizes. I got a 3/8, and then I think the other ones were 1/4-20s, maybe, if I'm not mistaken. And then I got washers to go on both sides, and then obviously a nut to go on the bottom. Got home, put the pier on top of the metal plate, dropped in the 3 bolts, and then, washers, nuts, etc. And it just perfectly fit on top. I then removed the old steel plate from my pier, and I'll put some photos of this on the in the show notes if you want to check out what I'm talking about. The plates that I purchased on Amazon, they actually have pre-drilled holes in the corners, which is great. So all you have to do is pull the old one off, drop the new one on, and then make sure it's level, which is what I did. And I dropped it on. I had the pier in place with the extension tube, and then the AM3 just dropped right on top of that. And then there's 3 little knobs that you turn to lock it into place. And it's rock solid up there. So I was able to get the AM3 mounted, and I'll be running it pretty much all of Galaxy season on that pier. And I have 2 networks at home. So I've got my observatory network, and then I have the home network that everyone is on. And I'm actually going to be using that to test as if it were in Utah on a separate network. And I'm testing out a few different methods for connection. There's a lot of different ways that you can go with this. We've been talking about it in the Discord quite a bit. You can use Windows, which is, RDP, or remote desktop protocol. Chrome remote desktop is an excellent option. For the VPN itself, you can use Tailscale, which is very popular, and I'm still kind of learning the ins and outs of that. And honestly, I'm still trying to figure out what exactly I'm accomplishing by using that. If I'm using something like Chrome remote desktop already, I know that it's making a tunnel directly between the 2 machines, but I'm wondering if I'm using Chrome remote desktop, if I need that tunnel. But I don't know. I need to do a little bit more research on that so I can understand it. After I got the AM3 all set up, I already had the rig itself. So when I say the rig, the telescope, the mini PC, and all the fixins that go with it were already on the new plate that I had purchased. And that's a Lost Mandy plate, and it's a long one. I think it's like 14 inches. It's got more than enough space to hold everything that I need, including the mini PC. I used some really cool riser blocks that Justin, shout out to Justin, had mentioned to me in the Discord group, and they worked out great for just a 2-inch gap. I was able to slide the mini PC under that, so it basically is directly under my SQA 55. In front of the front riser block, I've got the SV Boney power box, which, by the way, that is a really great power box for like $60 is all they charge for it. If you compare that to the competitors that are out there, it's no contest. I mean, it's very inexpensive compared to the competitors, and it's been doing a great job. So it's got obviously USB hub, it's got Type C, it's got USB 3.0 and 2.0, but more importantly, it also has DC barrel plugs for power, which you can use for things like your dew heater. You can power your camera, you can power your mount. And believe it or not, I'm even powering my mini PC off of it quite successfully, I might add. So I literally have one power adapter that goes directly to the SV Boney for, my AC DC power, but you know what I mean, through a outlet. And then that distributes all of the power to everything. So the mount, the computer, the camera, all of it comes off the SV Boney power box, and it's doing it very successfully. So if you can think of any reason why I shouldn't be doing that, I would definitely like to know it. Like I say, I'm going to be testing this whole system out for the next couple of months. I've got until May before I need to start thinking about packing it all up. So I've got plenty of time to test it all out. So like if maybe I should use a separate power supply for the mount, like I've heard from so many people, let me know why. But, as of now, it seems to be doing a great job. So I got that all set up and I basically started thinking about, how am I going to need this computer to function when I cannot be near it? So one of the first things that occurred to me is that I need it to automatically power on if there is power. And what I mean by that is like, consider a power outage. And let's say that I decide to go with a UPS. Okay, well, what if the power outage lasts longer than the UPS? And then the power eventually comes back on, but the UPS is dead. I want the computer to then turn back on at that point, but I'm not going to physically be there to press the button. And while I'm sure I could ask somebody at Astropeak to go by and press the button because they include that as part of your credits and your costs, I would prefer if I didn't have to, bug anyone to turn it back on. So there is a setting in BIOS for, Windows PCs where you can go in and basically turn it to auto power on if it's receiving DC power. You can also do power over Ethernet, but I'm not entirely sure about the networking situation yet at Astropeak. So I don't know if they're planning on running network cables to every pier or if it's going to be on Wi-Fi. I'm not entirely sure. So I wanted to make sure that no matter what, it would automatically power up. I probably mentioned on the prior show, but I've automated to where when it boots into Windows, I've got it where you don't have to enter in a username or password. It logs into the local admin account automatically. It automatically starts Nina, and then it automatically connects all of my equipment. So I was able to successfully make that happen. I then basically went into the house and, got on my desk on the separate network, opened up Chrome Remote Desktop, and bang, I can see there's the observatory computer and it's online. So basically, I pressed the power button on the computer and walked away. 10 minutes later, I sit down at my desk and pull up Chrome Remote Desktop. I can log in. I'm already on the Windows desktop. Nina is already open. PhD2 for guiding is already open. It's already connected all of my equipment. My camera is already cooling itself. Everything's perfect. So I wanted to accomplish a few things on that first night when I had clear skies. I wanted to basically polar align the scope and then successfully take a few images and slew the scope and, see where it will go expectedly. So basically just make sure that it's slewing correctly. So this is where I kind of ran into one of my first, I'll say somewhat unique issues, but probably not terribly unique. So being in Nina and messing around, I immediately was taken back to 2020 in church parking lots with a laptop, because when I very first started back with my SV Bony scope and my Canon Rebel T3i, I was using Astrophotography Tool, APT back then, but I quickly switched over to Nina. And I started trying to remember like how everything works. Nina's got a ton of options in it. It is not like the ASI Air. ASI Air simplifies everything and makes it as easy as possible to have a single astrophotography session. And they do have some tools for, repeating sessions night after night. But Nina is for controlling an entire observatory. Basically, it has all of the tools to do it. And if it's not built in natively, whatever you're looking for, there's probably a plugin in the plugins tab that will do whatever it is that you're looking for. So I started kind of hunting around the program. And there were a few things that I knew I wanted. And chief among them was, and this isn't something necessary per se, but it's something that I just like to have. And maybe I won't care about it anymore after I'm set up and working remotely, because when I mentioned it in the Discord group, everybody was kind of like, yeah, I don't really need that. So I don't know, maybe I'm overthinking it. But when I started in astrophotography, I had Nina set up and working hand in hand with Stellarium to where I could literally see where my mount was pointing in the planetarium software. And then I could slew. So I could, move around in Stellarium, find a deep space object that looked interesting to me, and then slew the telescope there. And then I could go into Nina and set up a sequence and then start imaging, right? I don't know why, but I like to have a visual reference of where my scope is pointing at all times. And one of the problems that I was running into was when I could finally get Stellarium and Nina talking properly using the remote control plugin in Stellarium, it was showing my mount all the way on the western horizon, complete west, all the way like right on the horizon, 90 degrees, and I didn't know why. I was like, why is it doing this? Because when I looked in Nina, it appeared to be in the correct spot. So it turned out it was a syncing issue. Basically, the two weren't talking correctly. And the other issue that I was running into is once the mount, I think, had connected in Nina, it was hard to kind of share control of the mount, if you will, with Stellarium, because Nina was already connected to the mount and using it. It's basically like trying to have, two phones play music on the same Bluetooth speaker at the same time. It's just not going to work, right? So one of our members in the Discord, I was, kind of chatting about the issue that I was having. I believe it was Lex. He mentioned that I should probably check out the ASCOM device manager software, which basically lets you look at all of your ASCOM devices from one interface. And once I did that, that was kind of the key. So basically I went into Stellarium and I changed it from just ASCOM device to the actual ASCOM device manager. And for whatever reason, that worked beautifully. So whenever I synced it up, it gave me the sync from, Nina to mount information pop up. I hit yes. And then when I opened up Stellarium and turned on a remote control, bang, it was pointed at Polaris in the home position exactly like it should be. So that felt like a really big win for me. And again, like I say, that might not end up being terribly important in the grand scheme of things, because I realize, you can just plate solve wherever you're pointing at and it'll tell you. But I don't know. I worry about things like that. I know I can also, one of the really important things that I needed to do right away was set limits for the horizon. So like, don't ever go below 15 degrees. And that's something that you can set in the ASI mount software that you download and install. And you can also set, upper degree limits like 88 degrees, 89 degrees if you want. You can set limits for tracking on the meridian, like track for 1 minute after the meridian before flipping, for example, things like that. So I set all those up. I still need to test them. I haven't tested meridian flips, which is obviously going to be very important. I need to do a little bit of cable management. Overall, I'm pretty happy with the cables right now, but I can tighten things up a little bit. I just want to get it in a state that is repeatable and easy to do. Basically, the main problem that you run into with cable management, in my experience, is making sure that you have the right length cables, because you can run into situations where the cables are way too long, and you can run into situations where the cables are way too short. And if you have the correct length cables for everything that you need, a lot of times you don't even need to do much tightening up, like using zip ties or Velcro or whatever it is that you use. If it's the right size from the get-go, you don't got to worry about it too much. So that's what I'll be working on for cable management. And I still have one other thing that I need to add to this rig. I was considering two things, but then after talking with the group in the Discord, I think I'm just going to stick with the one. So all in all, if we go from like top to bottom on this remote rig, there's an AM3 mount. There is the, the SQA55 astrograph, which is an excellent wide field 264 millimeter focal length scope. I will be combining that, at least initially, with my 2600 MC Pro. So we're talking, very wide field. It's going to be awesome for things like dark nebula and dust collection. Oh man, that's going to be gorgeous from Portal 1 skies. I cannot wait to do, 100 hours on something like the Dark Shark from Portal 1 skies. That's going to look insane. We've got obviously my mini PC, which is a Ryzen PC with 16 gigabytes of RAM and a 512 gigabyte SSD. I think that's pretty much plenty for what I'll need for now. I don't know. I might add a little bit more storage to it, but I'm going to set up a remote copy, which is a plugin in Nina, where basically you can set it up to attach to another computer or network attached storage. And essentially, as soon as it downloads or takes an image of any kind, it will automatically copy it over to the network folder of your choice. So, if I have that up and running from day one, there shouldn't really be any reason why I need more storage than 512 gigs, because I should have this set up where it's cleaning itself up afterwards. So like once that file is copied over to the, network storage of my choice, I could write like a batch file that would automatically delete the light on the imaging computer. So got that. Obviously I mentioned the SV Boney power box. I've got a ZWO EAF electronic autofocus controller. I've also got the temperature sensor, which I think is going to be a really, nice to have out there. 2 USB dew heaters. I am going to put one on the guide scope. I don't know if it's really necessary, but figure it's not a bad idea to have. So I think, now that I'm thinking about it, I probably want to replace those with actual DC barrel dew heaters, because I want to be able to turn them on and off. And I'm trying to think. I don't know if there's ASCOM software for the SV Boney power box that will allow you to individually control the DC barrel jacks. And if there's not, would there be any harm in running the dew heaters 24/7? So that's another thing I'm going to have to research and figure out. And let me think. Obviously, you got your guide scope, guide cam. I'm just doing the ASI 120mm mini because, again, this is a wide field rig that I will be imaging from. I did add a counterweight. Not necessary, as you know, on harmonic mounts, as long as they're under the threshold for weight. The whole rig weighs about 13 pounds. That's an extra 2 pounds because of the Los Mandy dovetail that I'm using now. So it's approaching the upper limit of what you can do without the counterweight. I just figured it would not hurt to add on a counterweight, so I did. And it's slewing beautifully. And while you can't balance these harmonic mounts, so to speak, in the traditional way, like you would with a worm gear mount and unlocking the clutches, I realized, if you look at it all along the same axis and balance the weight as best you can, by visually looking at the axis and saying, the most weight is right here. I want to have the mount directly below that. That's a pretty good way of doing it. And there's no struggle whatsoever in the AM3 when it's slewing. So I think it's going to be perfectly fine for that. So the only thing that I'm really missing on this rig is going to be a filter wheel. So this is a conversation that we were having in the group chat. Obviously, I know I'm using a one-shot color camera, so it's not, mono. I don't need to do like LRGB SHO. But there are definitely times when I would like to have a filter when I'm imaging remotely from Bortle 1 skies. And the types of filters are going to vary. I mean, obviously, you can do like a dual narrowband filter. So I was thinking my 2-inch L Extreme filter by Ioptron would be a great choice for dual narrowband. And then I could use one of the slots for darks. So you can put basically a dark filter in and then move to that filter wheel whenever you want to, do a fresh dark library. A UV IR cut filter for the sharpest stars possible, though we had some debate over that because there is a window, obviously, on most CWO cameras that is a built-in UV IR cut filter. But I've seen kind of mixed reviews on this as to whether or not it can be beneficial. Let me know in the comments, do you run a UV IR cut filter ever on your ZWO cameras? And I know it varies from camera to camera. I'm referring specifically to the 2600 MC Pro. Shoot me an email, rue@theastrocast.com. If you've got an opinion on that, I would love to hear it. And then I was also thinking Leviathan. Obviously, they have the Spectral Pro. I got to talk to James about that because I do have that on long-term loan. And obviously, if I sent it out to the observatory, it would be a longer-term loan. But I think it would be a really good test case for gathering data. And initially, the group was like, well, you're going to be in Bortle 1 skies. What the heck do you need a light pollution filter for? I was just thinking like moonlight nights, whenever it's full moon, that it would be helpful to have. Perhaps I'm wrong. I got to read up a little bit more on that. I'm not accustomed to imaging from Bortle 1 skies, guys. Like for me, I always have to have a light pollution filter, dual narrowband filter. I've got garbage skies here and in Charlotte, North Carolina, and they are getting worse by the minute. This giant shopping center that's going in behind my house, well, not behind my house, but behind our neighborhood. I drove by a couple nights ago and I saw all along the street in front of where the shopping center is going to go, they have put in just the most obnoxiously bright, unshielded streetlights, full broadband LED streetlights that you've ever seen. And no shielding whatsoever. So much of that light is going straight up into the night sky. And it makes me sick. I'm so glad that I'm going to have access to these dark skies. And I implore you guys, if you're considering it, get in line. I don't know if You know what? Let me check real quick. All right. Yeah, there's still one spot left for the Founders Piers. It was sold out, but I don't know if they canceled or what, because it was 50 a 50, but now it's 49 a 50. So there's one spot left. So if you're on the fence, maybe jump in and do it. You can join us at patreon.com/the Astrocast. Join us for $5 per month. You'll get access to the entire Discord, the amazing family that we have built, a community of awesome individuals that talk every day about all things astronomy. And then obviously you'll get a discount on your pier at Astropeak, and I can provide that code to you if and when you decide to join the group. But anyway, since I don't have access to skies like that, I have never really thought about how to use filters in situations like that. That being said, though, I do know that obviously darks are going to be something that I'll want. I'll definitely want the option to do dual narrowband on specific targets. So it just makes sense to have a filter wheel, in my opinion. So I will be, getting probably a 5 slot. Initially, I was like, why not get a 7 slot just because? But it might be overkill. I don't know. If I end up going mono at some point, I could always just move that filter wheel over to the mono camera. But then again, I was thinking maybe I'll go QHY Minicam 8 that already includes all the filters for $1,000 because, those are pretty awesome. So a lot of choices to be made there. But for now, I probably will be purchasing a filter wheel. So I think that's really the main thing that I'm missing from the rig right now. I'm going to have to talk to Nathan about the power situation. I need to figure out if I need to be able to manually turn power on and off myself, like as in, have network controllable power switches, or if that's going to be built into the dashboard. I think he said he's going to have that built into the dashboard, but don't quote me on that. Not 100% sure. I'll talk to him, ask him, and let you guys know. And then the other thing that I really, really want to do, and I don't know if I'll be able to or not, but I'm damn sure going to try. I want to get like an all sky camera and attach it to either my pier or maybe even the top of my mount. Maybe have it go, with the tracking. And that could be really freaking cool, right? Have it, move with the stars, or, I could even slowly move the pier. There's a million different things that I could do with that. I think it would be super cool to have an all sky cam. So I was looking at options for that. If I did it, I think I would probably go with something lower cost, like a, planetary camera or like a ASI 662. I think those are going for like under $200. And then you can just attach a wide angle lens to it to get that, 180 degree view. I think that would be really cool. So I'm considering that. I think if I went that route, I would have to think of how I want to go about attaching it. So there's a lot of questions around that. If you've ever attached a, like a small wide field camera to a rig specifically for like viewing the entire night sky, let me know about it. I'd love to hear about what your experience is like and how you did it. I was thinking you could 3D print essentially like a tube ring that has a 1/4 inch or a 3/8 attachment point. Picture like a wedding ring. It's got the ring and then the spot on top that holds the diamond. Picture that diamond area, but being a block with a 3/8 hole in it. And then you could basically just screw in, any, camera accessory that you want. And if I made the tube ring the right size to fit around the guide camera, then I should be able to just put the whole thing right on top of the telescope, which would be really cool, depending on where the pier is, I suppose. But anyway, that's something I'm considering doing. I think it would be really, really cool to have. I decided I'll probably not go with a flat cap, like a, flip flap cap, as I like to call them. Just because after talking with Nathan about sky flats and reading up on them a little bit more, particularly with my camera, the 2600, it works great with sky flats from everything I've read, and the tools that are built into Nina can take care of that. No problem. So I'll probably just save my money on that. and put it towards the filter wheel instead. So definitely a whole lot happening in terms of, getting prepared for May and June. I'm probably going to end up taking I don't know, at least a week off of work, maybe 10 days, because this is going to be a heck of a trip. So I got to fly out to, I think it's St. Louis area, or Minneapolis. I can't remember. Forgive me, Parrish. I'm going to meet up with Parrish. I'm going to fly up there. I'll probably ship some of what I can in advance to Nathan or Astropeak Observatory. I was thinking like my counterweight, maybe the mini PC, stuff that probably won't get destroyed in shipping if I pack it nicely. And then that way I can just, when I fly to meet with Parrish, because I initially thought maybe I'll just drive up to Parrish's and then me and him can drive all the way to Utah. But that would add just a lot of time to an already pretty long road trip. So I decided against that. I'm just going to fly up and meet with Parrish, and then me and him can make the nice long drive out to Utah together. Oh man, I'm so excited about that trip. I've seen photos of, driving down those highways and seeing the mountains in the distance. And it's just, man, it's gorgeous. I cannot wait to get out under those dark skies. I didn't get to take a proper dark sky trip last year. And you guys know me and my buddy always try to do our dark sky trip every year that I've covered on the show several times. Didn't get to do one last year. That's going to change this summer. We are definitely doing it, and it's going to be in a new place. My first time, seeing Western dark skies, I guess Midwestern, I don't know, is Utah West or Midwest? What would you consider that? But my first time seeing high elevation dark skies, true dark skies. So very, very excited about that. Just praying we get good weather. Obviously, I think most of the time it's good weather that time of the year. Obviously we're going at new moon. So we're going to plan everything as best we can, and we're just going to, send it and make it happen and see how it all goes down. So I'm super, super, super excited about it. And it actually makes galaxy season a little bit exciting this year. Normally I'm not too excited about galaxy season, but when you are preparing a rig like this in the way that I am, there's no way you can't be excited about it. So I can't wait to see how this all goes down. So let me switch gears for a minute here. My wife said to me a couple of weeks ago, she said, "Are you going to highlight any African-American people this month, with it being Black History Month in America?" And I thought to myself, I should absolutely do that. And I had heard about a particular movie that I believe the book actually inspired the film. So there is a book about these particular women that I'm going to discuss with you. And that could also be this week's recommendation. That goes without saying. I thought long and hard about who to highlight here, because there are a lot of great African-American people throughout history that have contributed a great deal to astronomy, to the space age, to NASA, going back hundreds of years, both, before and after segregation and slavery. But I thought in particular, these three women would be great to highlight just because of their immense contributions, the direct work that they did with NASA, and the pioneering astronauts that ended up being among the first people to go into space. So the women in question are Dorothy Vaughan, Katherine Johnson, and Mary Jackson. And the book, if you want to check it out, is called Hidden Figures. And I would highly recommend it. Very great book. If you're not a big reader, obviously there is a movie. I haven't actually watched the movie yet. I'm going to watch it, but I always try to read the book before watching the movie. And the book is usually better. So I'd recommend the book. I'd also recommend the movie. But these ladies were very similar to Henrietta Swan Leavitt. If you remember Swan Song back many episodes ago, Uh, she was a human computer before digital computers were a thing. And very much like Henrietta, Dorothy, Catherine, and Mary were computers for NACA and then later NASA once that organization was founded, and worked very hard both, as I said, before and after segregation ended. I'm just going to read a little bit about each of them from an article that I found on medium.com. We'll start with Dorothy Vaughan. So she was born in 1910 and lived a very long life all the way up to 2008. And she was among the first of a small group of Black women mathematicians who signed on with NACA in 1943. So, right smack dab in the middle of World War II. So if you didn't know, before NASA was founded, we had NACA, and NACA was the National Advisory Committee for Aeronautics. And that was obviously before space travel. And it was actually formed way back in 1915 and wasn't a space travel agency at all. NACA was literally for aeronautics, post Wright brothers, and as, planes is basically what their forte was. But Dorothy worked for NACA. She signed on with them in 1943. And in 1949, she actually became the director of West Area Computers, which was a segregated facility at Langley, where she managed a large group of African-American women in the 1950s. When NACA started getting digital computers so they could speed up the work, which she and her computers, quote unquote, were doing, she actually decided to learn Fortran at that point, which was a very early computer language, and she became a successful programmer. Her position as a manager lasted all the way up until NASA was established in 1958. And at that point, that segregated facility that she had worked at was abolished. Dorothy ended up working with NASA for 28 years before retiring. And throughout that time, she spent a great amount of her time nurturing the careers of young women that she supervised and worked with. So she absolutely trained the next generation's minds and brought them to greater places and greater heights, frankly. So in 1994, she was being interviewed and was asked about her experience as an African-American woman. And she said, "I changed what I could, and what I couldn't, I endured." She ended up raising 6 children also during those years of NACA and NASA. So Dorothy Vaughan, an absolutely amazing figure and in our historical timeline of NASA and NACA. So the most famous among these 3 women is probably going to be Katherine Johnson, who actually just passed away 6 years ago. She was born in 1918 and lived all the way to 2020. So, she lived a very long and full life. She was definitely the most famous African-American woman who worked as a mathematician during this time at both NACA and NASA. And she was a latecomer. She started in 1953, over a decade after Dorothy Vaughan had started. And she did work with Dorothy for a time in the computer pool. In fact, on Wikipedia, it notes that from 1958 until her retirement in 1986, Johnson worked as an aerospace technologist, moving during her career to the spacecraft controls branch. She calculated the trajectory for the May 5th, 1961 spaceflight of Alan Shepard, the very first American in space. So again, she calculated the trajectory for the flight of the first person of American heritage in space. So she also calculated the launch window for the 1961 Mercury mission. And she manually plotted all of the backup navigation charts for astronauts in case electronics failed. She grew to great fame because John Glenn actually relied on her quite a bit. And there's actually a really, really great quote. When NASA used electronic computers for the first time to calculate John Glenn's orbit around Earth, officials called on Katherine Johnson, to verify the computer's numbers because John Glenn had specifically said he refused to fly unless Katherine Johnson had verified those calculations. So John Glenn counted on Miss Katherine Johnson that much. She also later calculated the trajectory for the 1969 Apollo 11 flight to the moon. So her and her husband, James, had 3 daughters. She raised them alone after he tragically died quite young in 1956. But she continued to inspire a whole generation of minds that she was able to teach and show, and just really pave the way, not only for African Americans, but women in the workforce as a whole. And she was known to be incredibly sharp well into her 90s. So she was actually the age of 101. I take that back. She was 101 when she died in 2020. So may she rest in peace. Finally, Mary Jackson. She was born in 1921 and passed away in 2005. She worked as a mathematician and aerospace engineer, again, at both NACA and later NASA, for a total of 34 years. She started in 1951. Like Catherine, she began working in Langley as a computer in Dorothy Vaughn's segregated West Area computing pool. Mind you, NACA had a completely segregated area for the Black women to work until it was abolished. In 1958, she became the first Black female engineer at the agency and eventually gained the most senior engineering title available. So she was promoted to the very, very top of possibilities within her career at NASA. Once she realized she couldn't rise any further as an engineer without becoming a supervisor, she actually accepted a demotion to become a manager of the Federal Women's Program in the NASA Office of Equal Opportunity Programs and Affirmative Action Program. In this role, she worked to influence the hiring and promotion of women in NASA's science, engineering, and mathematics careers. So she did phenomenal work and, again, paved the way not just for African American people, but for all women in the workforce. So I just wanted to salute these 3 great late women and just thank them for their incredible contributions to not only astronomy, but just humanity as a whole. And I think it's important, especially in these days, that we look back at our history and remember that we stand very much on the shoulders of giants who came before us. And had they not done the hard work of yesteryear, we would not have the ease with which we do things today. You know, if we didn't have manual calculators working back in the 40s and 50s, we wouldn't have, super easy to use calculators in our pockets today on our iPhones, right? So thank you very, very much to those 3 women for the incredible work that they have done. And thanks again to medium.com for writing the excellent article, which I was able to reference for much of the info. Again, the book is called Hidden Figures. There was a movie that was recently released for it. I highly recommend both of them. Definitely make sure that you check them out and just let me know what you think. I'm not doing a social media stardust entry this week just because I'm taking a little social media detox. If you've been wondering why I haven't posted much on the Astrocast Facebook page for the last couple of weeks, I needed a little time away from Facebook and social media in general. So I uninstalled the app from my phone and haven't really logged in at all over the last couple of weeks. And I'm going to tell you, it feels very, very nice. But that being said, I will still pull it up on my desktop computer and make posts whenever important things are out there to share, including this episode. Obviously, I'll get online and share that with you guys. But we'll be back next week with a new winner for Social Media Stardust. And just as a reminder, if you would like to enter into that contest, which includes both a cash prize and a C-Star Smart Telescope that we'll be giving away at the end of 2026, just tag us at the Astrocast or hashtag Social Media Stardust, and that will be the way that you can enter. I check for the hashtag every week, and I look through, find my favorite. We'll pick it out, and then at the end of the year, once we have all of them grouped together, we will have the entire Astrocast community vote on their favorite image, and that person will then be the winner of the Social Media Starcast, or Stardust rather, challenge for the year. So next year we'll probably do it again because it seems like it's being pretty successful this year, and I'm really happy with how it's going. So make sure that you get your entries in if you haven't already, and I will be sure to check them out. I guess I'll mention one more time, guys, if you would like to join us in the Discord. It's really popping over there. Things are going quite well there. We do have some new members as well. Can't remember if I gave a shout out to Tex on the last episode. I want to give a shout out to our new member, Tex. Sean actually joined on January 21st. So that's been a minute. I think I might have shouted you out already, Sean. And then obviously Greg, who just joined yesterday. Thank you so much, Greg, for becoming a member of the Patreon and joining into the Discord. Very happy to have you there. Can't wait to hear more from you and get to know you a little bit better. We really do have an amazing group of people. And I know I've said this 100 times, but I think my favorite part about the Astrocast is the community that we have been able to bring together. So that's going to do it for this week's episode, guys. I greatly appreciate you sitting down and listening to me yap for an hour about all things Astro. Things will continue to progress on the remote rig, and I will keep you updated with how it's going. If you have any suggestions for me on things that maybe I didn't mention or haven't thought about yet for running a remote rig, please send them to me because, I'm all ears as far as that's concerned. You can email me at rue@theastrocast.com. And if you would like to join us in the Discord or get that last peer that is available at Astropeak, please visit us at patreon.com/the Astrocast. So that will do it for this week's episode. Thank you so much for listening to the Astrocast. I am your host, Rue. And as always, clear skies.
Wednesday evening, the feed goes live. Rue's voice cuts through the dark like a 135. From backyard scopes to mountain peaks, we're all tuned in, no time to sleep. Red dot finders, coma correctors gain. He breaks it down like it's simple, never pain. Comets rising, planets in the frame. Every week we chase the sky by name. Pixels glowing, hearts align, thousands of miles, one state of mind. This is the Astrocast, where the dark brings us to the light. From Florida to the UK lights, we're wide awake under the same sky. Discord pinging, never quiet, rules on the that cosmic rule.